right. So, sticking with controversial statements, the Jungle Cruise was announced last week. That was this week?
This week.
This week. I don't know what day it is. The show's on Thursday. I know what day it is. It was announced this week that they're going to be making major alterations to the Jungle Cruise at Walt Disney World and Disneyland. We know at least 2 of the new scenes. We know the Rhino scene. We're going to be getting this group of explorers who have lost their boat and are now being run up this pole by a rhino. And meanwhile, their boat has been taken over by a rather comical group of chimpanzees who are doing some funny things. One of them's acting like a skipper. Another one's playing with butterflies. There's one with an umbrella on the roof, etc. This is part of a whole new story where there will be a skipper and a crew with their own sort of side story happening while we're going along the river, which is the first time they've really put in a strong narrative for the Jungle Cruise, other than Jingle Cruise probably. But nonetheless, this is happening. This is part of that initiative, which includes Splash Mountain turning into a Princess and the Frog attraction. This is the next step in that process. I know we speculated a lot what would be next when we did those Splash Mountain discussions, and they were very long, and I know we touched on Jungle Cruise. But now that day has arrived, and I want to know what everyone on the panel thinks. By the way, the panel, Eric, Axel, Wolf, all joining Nick and myself. What do you guys, Axel, why don't you go first?
No, I mean, it's still great. Like, they talk about things making politically correct, and they call me. So, well, there's, how to put it, it bothers me less than Splash Mountain, definitely more than the Redhead.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
No, the Redhead bothers me more. I said that wrong.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The Redhead bothers me
Flip
more.
it, reverse it.
Yeah. I was like, what did I just say? No.
I was like, people generally like this one.
No, it depends what scenes. Now we only seen like 2 scenes, and there's one like the one with the pole, like maybe a bit outdated. Like
Please stop talking about the poles. Can we move on?
I mean,
we already talked about Polish mortals tonight.
Wow. I already probably have hate mail. It's fine.
No, that one is definitely due for an update. I don't know. There's a few things where I'm like, oh, should they touch this, or what is the borderline of correctness and what is still like real life? I mean, the indigenous people, even up on this day, you go to the south of America, somewhere in the jungle of Brazil, Chile, I don't know where, you're gonna find those tribes, and at that point, we, the white faces, are in their territory. They have all the right to attack us. So I'm like, no, they do.
I'm not familiar with tribal law. I have no idea.
No, but
I know Florida. If someone comes on your property, you blow their face off.
There you go.
I don't know about the jungles.
County.
I don't know the jungles of Brazil. I have no idea.
I was just about to say, you come into my neighbor's backyard in Polk County, hey, you don't need to ask for it.
I've often heard, though, that living in Florida is worse than living in the jungles of Brazil.
It probably is. But I think that they shouldn't touch everything. The whole explorers thing, I get that. You have like people of different color.
I think it's arguable if the tribal scenes are offensive, right? Because you got to remember, like Mark Davis did a lot of research and a lot of actual travel to places where there were these indigenous people, and him and Alice collected indigenous art. They had a large collection of masks and all sorts of things, and so his representations were meant to be accurate. So is that like they're not? Those aren't joking scenes. They're they're the more serious scenes of the ride. It's not like the animal scenes where there's cute little funny things going on. These are meant to represent like real dangers of, maybe, white adventurers going into places they really shouldn't have gone in the 1930s and culturally appropriating masks and props. Harrison Hightower, I think Disney has a whole ride that where someone who did that gets what they deserve. Harrison Hightower ends up stealing an idol and it's cursed and he gets killed, gets thrown down an elevator shaft,
I mean, I'd be happy if one of those scenes went, because it's one of the most awkward parts of the boat ride where they're asking everybody like to get down and no one gets down. So now
Don't
we don't have
ask
to
me
worry
to
about
do things.
Yeah, now we don't have to worry about that
This is
anymore.
America.
Oh, I hate that. Like looking around, is anybody else gonna duck? No, good. All right.
Yeah.
So get that out of there. Yeah.
I saw on I think it was The Onion this week, their headline was
Just
that
today.
white missionary, Disney was installing animatronic white Christian missionaries in the jungle to like convert the tribes people. So that was kind of,
Which is a good Onion piece. It was
Perfect,
a
perfect Onion headline. I'm okay with this, what they're doing. I'm okay with making creative changes to this because they're not trying to, as far as we know, what they've said, they're not going to try to cram the Jungle Cruise movie into it. If they were trying to just like, hey, look, is that the Rock in the jungle over there? I would be pissed off.
This
But
was a way
really,
more-
this is probably overdue to do this. And I think as long as they do it tastefully and they still keep a little bit of humor, it sounds like they're going to keep a little bit of that, like kind of Mark Davis style humor.
Yeah.
You know, I'm okay with it.
Where'd you get that idea from? The fact that they said Mark Davis 500 times?
Yeah.
Can we talk
By the
about
way,
that?
we like Mark Davis.
Let's talk about this for a second. It's as if they knew there was someone out there who in the past has fought for Mark Davis. And they're like, we really got to, if there's one person we got to win over, we're touching a Mark Davis ride. Let's make sure he doesn't get angry. Mention Mark. But at the same time, like I'm on board because I like the people involved. I think all the right people are involved with it. These are people who did Jingle Cruise and Skipper Canteen and those kind of things, which I think enhance the Jungle Cruise story tremendously. And so those things feeding back into the ride, giving back to the ride, the same way the Pirates movies kind of did with the Pirates ride. And I know some people think those are mixed results, but certainly Pirates was a very big thing for a long time, and you can't deny it was a great move to add Jack Sparrow and those characters in a very similar fashion. Jungle Cruise inspired, Sea and Skipper Canteen and all these other things, and now all that lore, that Disney adventurer lore that's developed in the 65 years since Jungle Cruise opened at Disneyland is now kind of going to give back. It's all going to come full circle. I like that the vignettes look cute. So between the fact that it's the right people, it does look to have like that Jungle Cruise heart. I think if anything, what this proved is if it's the right idea, people on the internet will respond positively. I think the Disney company sometimes like to pretend like everyone's very unreasonable. And I think with Splash Mountain, they like pretended everyone's just being unreasonable, like this is the right decision. But then I think it shows you the difference when you announce this Jungle Cruise change, and I don't think there was nearly, like I would say,
There wasn't like a massive backlash.
Very minuscule percentage of people are offended that they're changing this ride, which I think again speaks to you're not taking away things. You're not taking away the scenes that mean something, right? We always talk about, when you update an art exhibit, right? You don't replace the Mona Lisa. You replace the exhibits around the Mona Lisa, right? And so when you're working on Jungle Cruise, what do you not do? Well, we got to change the rhino scene. We can't get rid of the rhino. People love the rhino. Change the people on the pole. No one cares who's on the pole. The joke works the same, right?
Yep.
You're not touching the elephant bathing pool.
Yeah.
You're not touching anything that genuinely means something to someone.
I've always thought it was like the temple, inside the temple. They could kind of change that, like in my
Tokyo
perspective.
did.
Yeah,
Tokyo
like,
did this whole projection thing in there.
It's
which
like
is super
that's
cool.
one of those things that it's just like no one really cares.
But that didn't
Like,
offend anyone, so they're not going to touch
Yeah,
it.
well, that's
So
the
that's a
thing.
problem.
Yeah.
That's going to rot for another 40 years.
Yeah.
But the things that offended people, we're going to get to tomorrow instead of doing it all at once.
Maybe add a couple Wi-Fi hotspots in there too for live.
Right on top of the rhino pole.
Right. One in the tunnel.
5G. It's brown. Brown one.
Yeah.
But would you really do you think that somebody like mailed to the Disney company and said like, hey, we've seen that there's one white dude on that pole on the very top,
Yeah.
and all the other ones are black. That bothers me. I'm like, I'm okay. The idea is wrong.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, if you are going on a safari tomorrow and you're going to go to Africa and you're going to say, like, hey, I want to do a safari and I want some people around me that know their way, know the animals, can protect me from the animals, can show.
Yeah, but the
Like,
difference
let it be
today,
clear,
there's
it's
a
not gonna
very
be white
different
people.
dynamic in the real world, right? In the 1930s, they're kind of more like servants, which is going to make people uncomfortable. I've always been uncomfortable with the Disneyland one in particular. Like, I passed that scene, I was like, oh, that survived, okay.
And that's with the whole uniform thing, that's definitely wrong. And I think it really doesn't matter. Like you say, people are going to pass it by and say, oh, the rhino, but never look really what.
I think at Disneyland people notice, and I think at Disneyland, like, legitimately people are like, I can't believe that's here. And I'm kind of surprised it lasted as long as it did. In a world where in 1997 they were already fixing pirates at Disneyland with the men chasing the women, I'm stunned that into 2021 that scene made it. Like, that makes people uncomfortable. That makes me uncomfortable, so I get it. Like, that scene, I understand. You know, I think definitely, I would say over the years, it's got to be 100 times more people were offended by that scene in Jungle Cruise than the auction scene in Pirates, probably.
Right.
I'm not saying they never got complaints about the pirate scene. I'm sure they did. But I think they got way more for Jungle Cruise over the years, probably.
Yeah. This also looks like something they can probably do. They can probably turn this around pretty quickly.
It doesn't sound like the ride's going to close.
I don't. Yeah, I think it's.
Yeah.
You know.
Very cool.
They're going to put up a tarp, and you ride the ride with a missing scene for a couple weeks, and then.
Yeah.
Well, you do think they're going to. Like, where would you put the boat?
I don't know where the boat goes.
Because what I always
Is that where the canoe
The
is?
camp?
Like maybe the
Yeah.
bone canoe?
That, or I mean, where for me it's like the part where you pass and you're like, oh, the plane, and this is where I took my crash course and all that. I'm like,
Yeah, but I
it's
think they're
nice,
trying to
but
cover the offensive stuff, though, right? So I don't think we're losing anything. We're not losing, I think, just some green space.
But are
What about Trader
Maybe.
Sam and the
That's-
shrunken heads?
That's the real question: is Sam going to survive?
Yep.
I don't think at Disneyland he does, because the Sam at Disneyland is Mark created a much more cartoony character for the final character in Florida, right? Still offensive probably to a different race of people, but nonetheless, he's not great either. But I think the Disneyland one is probably not coming back.
Other question: can we have it here in the studio? I would like it to come in on Thursday.
If we had Reagan,
hey Sam,
I mean,
how are you?
We had Reagan, so you have anyone in this place.
I also think, like, the boat with the monkeys, like, I know they're saying this is not going to be a tie into the movie.
Yeah.
The boat with the monkeys is the easiest thing they can have in the movie. Like, if you
Yeah.
think about it.
Does this
And
also?
like-
We also,
Yeah.
the thing that bothers me,
ties
I
it
like,
back.
I like
That's
the boat with the
definitely-
monkeys, but it's kind of similar to the gorilla scene.
It is. And that's what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
very
Like,
similar.
is this isn't going to replace the gorilla scene? It's
No.
we're going to have two along those
So
same
you have
lines.
two primate taking over your stuff scenes.
But to Eric's point there, I think that it's going to be very easy for them to put these gags in the movie, right? Aren't we going to expect some of
The
these
movie's
gags
done,
in the
though.
Yeah, but aren't we going to expect some of these gags in the movie?
Who knows?
Because you had some of the Pirates gags in the pirate movie.
I don't know that Jungle Cruise ties in that. The only things we know is like, so the Rock's character plays this guy who runs like this jungle tour company. And
Don't take him
all of
for
the
granted.
things from the ride are like produced, right? So they're like fake things. So the backside of water, he pulls a rope, like water shoots over the top of something, all those things. I think that's kind of it. I think that, and supposedly there's sea references. That's the other thing.
Hopefully.
Supposedly.
Do we think this is?
Supposedly.
Oh, well,
Does it seem like the plot to the Jaws ride a little bit too much?
Yeah. It is now, because now you're seeing like the skippers out in the world, right? And Jaws, you had the sunken boat. You had,
And honestly, I would, and I'm not speaking for those people, but if I would be on that sinking boat that sunk here, and I see those monkeys, like, are you thinking I'm a monkey?
yeah.
Like that scene, I was like, does that come out of real life?
I want to know what came first. Like, did the boat sink and Imagineers were like, well, that's a scene.
No. The boat sank first.
Alicia says.
And then they came up with the scene.
Yeah. I don't doubt that. I don't.
I mean, it
don't
was a
doubt- They're
funny view,
fast tracking these things, and I don't think this was planned before the summer.
The one thing that I really liked about this whole video was this one Imagineer, his C-pin.
Oh, Kevin Lively, yeah.
That was like, it was there. You could not miss it.
Yeah.
yeah.
They sold that
It
pin.
is there. Yeah,
That was at Destination D.
You have 2 or 3. I don't doubt that.
I have one. One and my shirt. My great shirt. And so everyone was commenting underneath, oh, what a great shirt. I was like, yeah, it is a great shirt that I've worn on 400 shows already.
But that's one of the things where I would like to see more C.
I think you're going to.
Here's my theoretical question here. Are those people members of C that we have not met yet?
We also have a lot of faceless C members.
Yeah.
So number one, the queue at Mystic Manor has a bunch that never ended up anywhere. And number two, the paddles at Disneyland, at Tropical Hideaway, there's a bunch of C-like exploration paddles. There's a bunch of those that have never existed, like just made up people that have never been a part of any lore. So maybe some of them are going to finally work their way in. I don't think you're getting the existing people. I don't think Mary Oceaneer's there. I don't think Adam Merriweather Pleasure's going to be there, as much as I'd like to see that. But yeah.
I think as long as they don't, there's still the possibility of them sneaking stuff in that they're not going to announce, though, too. So it'd be interesting to see what the final version looks like before we totally pass judgment, because we've learned that here.
I think we're cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, I think so. I'm actually always for looking at classic attractions that have aged and seeing where we could update them. And so I think this looks like a positive update. I mean, you could put, the impetus to do this is the cultural diversity angle. But I think it was overdue anyway. I mean, I think this is something Disney should be looking to do.
This is the only way we get ride updates now, is if someone's offended.
Yeah,
because otherwise the money will never be spent.
So is this are we expecting this to start before they even start on Splash?
I think this will be done before they start on Splash.
Okay, wow.
They said they hope by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that bothers me way less than with Splash Mountain, is that at least they come forward with this message like, we want to make this ride diverse. And that pole is going to have like different explorers, and the third one from the bottom, he's gay, she's this, he's black, he's white, so we have everybody there, which is okay. With Splash, it was more like, oh no, we've been thinking about doing Princess and the Frog for so long.
It's true. This is them more being honest with people.
Be open. Here you're honest. It's like, well, this scene, I mean, it's 2021. We cannot do this scene anymore.
Yeah.
And we know it.
Yeah.
We're going to change it. And here you go. This is our plan. Have a look at this picture. Yeah. It's not like a Photoshop picture and quick take Tiana.
Thomas Kincaid.
I mean, it's...
Get some decals.
Is that the one who in the trash can? Thomas Kincaid?
Oh my God.
Thomas Kincaid.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh boy.
Painter of light. That's what they called him. Thomas Kincaid. Painter of light.
So here's the difference. I think night and day you see two very different PR departments in action, right? The Splash Mountain announcement was before they had their cultural, whatever they call it. They have executives now who are in charge of making sure that everything in the company is culturally sensitive and ethnically diverse and all of these things. And I think what you see is an announcement later where I tend to think those people said, no, it's all right for you to come out and say, like, we are changing this because we realize this is wrong. Like, people will applaud you for that. You should just be honest with them, not be like, oh, we were gonna do it. We already had it. You guys copied us. Like that's that. And look at that. They had a much more positive response. I think some of it's that it wasn't this knee jerk like, no, we had it. It was done.
Here's my thing. Is it all that, or is it also they're not redoing this ride to make it a different IP? Like, at the end of the day,
you can't get rid of the Jungle Cruise.
But that's what I mean.
Right? Yeah.
At the end of the day, we still have Jungle Cruise.
Yeah.
And then we're not going to have Splash Mountain.
Correct.
Kind of thing. So it's like,
it's absolutely like losing a whole thing.
Yeah.
And
but then they have to do it right, because I think the problem with Pirates is people are annoyed with the quality of what we got.
They did such a bad job.
So.
That scene is not entertaining.
Oh, quit your clucking.
It's not thoughtful. It's not funny. Quit your clucking.
Quit your clucking.
They want the rum. So now it's about alcoholism. So in 10 years, when we decide alcoholism's a problem, then we have to erase that scene again. I mean, at least we'll erase that scene because it needs to be at this point. But yeah, this just seems so much more thoughtful than Pirates. It seems so much more genuine than Splash. It just feels better than all of that. But this is, I don't even, this wasn't the one I was worried about. I think the ones I'm worried about are still to come. And I think it's specifically Tiki Room and Country Bears. Yeah. Because we know, whether you want to believe me or not, we know already that they're on the chopping block, and this is going to give them all the fuel they need to eradicate both of those.
But also, that's your best chance at owning some animatronic birds.
And bears.
Or bears.
Or bears.
And then also, once it's deemed that I was right, I can just ascend from the floor. So.
Can we get Melvin?
That's like PR-wise, like you said, it's like they made a video. They had some Imagineers in there. They had some cast members in there to tell like how great it's gonna be, and then wow, I've read this, and I mean, they did a good job in selling the whole thing.
Can you imagine if it was JPEG?
Yeah.
Just a video JPEG.
Oh,
we're getting rid of this. We're going to
Kevin
change that.
Lively has been like one of those people in the forefront for this Jungle Cruise stuff in the parks, whether it was the, what was the game with the Jujus? I can't remember the name, the Adventureland.
Oh, the name of that? I don't know.
The interactive game where you bought the Jujus, and it was really cool. That and Skipper Canteen and Jingle Cruise, which are all these wonderful extensions of Jungle Cruise. He's involved, and then everyone involved, I think, are good show writers who understand this business, and will make the right decisions if they have to make the change. And like to see in an interview, like an Imagineer be honest, like he's like, if we have to make these changes, we might as well make the most of it, right? I want to, like, that's an honest, genuine thought that makes everyone happy. Like, these are human beings. This company has to stop pretending like they're holier than thou, and like they always make the right decisions, and like they always know what they're doing. Just tell us you're human beings, and like, yeah, this has to change. We know, and we were poised with the challenge. Like, what do you do? Like, we know we have to make the ride better. Let's make it better. Instead of like, I don't know, when Kathy was doing Pirates, it was like, it wasn't about what the scene was going to be. It was just about her getting what she wanted. It was very disingenuous and very, I don't know.
Do you think the
two
next
very
thing to
different
go?
approaches.
I think the next thing to go, it's not really a full attraction. I think the shooting gallery will never come back.
Why?
It hasn't come back. I think guns. Guns and you have to touch things.
That Native American scene in Peter Pan's probably just going to vanish one day. Yeah. What'd you say? Tom Sawyer Island? What?
They can retheme it.
They've taken a lot of the offensive stuff out of Tom Sawyer Island through the years. Like, there were some really bad Native American depictions. Also, someone's going to realize that the top of our Big Thunder Mountain is an offensive Native American stereotype face at some point. If no one's noticed that. The top of the mountain, the whole top of the mountain is a stereotypical Native American face. Someone's going to change that at some point, I hope.
Tony Baxter in there.
Thank God Small World is all good to go.
No.
So, Small World's probably last on the list, but I think there's a couple things. We joked about it last week, but I always thought it was kind of weird that you go to the jungle, it's supposed to be Africa, and it's jazz music, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know about this. I loved it. Like, that piece of jazz music, if you move it from that scene, it has to go somewhere because it is a wonderful piece of music. But maybe it doesn't belong in the Africa scene. It might be offensive. I don't know. It's not for me to decide on that one.
And that dragon? Come on.
The dragon? Yeah, you guys are the worst. You guys did to my geese last week. That's why Allison isn't here. She's so offended about the geese. I'm not even joking. Yeah. Allison was very sad that the geese were not top tier. That's why she's not here this week.
Yeah, and the goose on Splash, and the geese, and it's a whole goose family.
It's a hard time for birds in this town.
Backwards geese.
The
I like my goose to be on a
Osprey
bottle,
getting
that's
kicked
about
off
it.
the track. Donald's dead. The goose's head was backwards. The geese on Small World didn't win. You know, it's rough out there. It's hard out there.
We can always get Tiki Room under new management again.
You should watch Top Gun and Goose died.
No,
That was
the
it.
thing with Tiki Room is, right, like the 4 main characters are these stereotypical birds from 4 different places. And Jose was voiced by a white dude. Like, I love that show, and if they touch it, I'm going to riot, but I also know, like, it's got to be next.
I'm sorry, I work with French people who speak English. They actually speak like that. Not even joking.
Pierre will make it. Pierre will be fine.
Pierre,
They'll be like, the French
Oh,
like
yeah.
it.
It's just going to
fine.
be called the Pierre Bird
But then
singing
here's the
bird
thing,
show.
like, wouldn't that be what we were talking about when we talked about Splash?
Yeah.
Do we just re-record it?
I think in that case, because Tiki Room at Disneyland, they'll have to, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't get rid of Tiki Room at Disneyland. It's untouchable. Like, the locals at Disneyland pass it down from generation to generation. They will riot. And I will tell you, like, Disneyland's mostly a Hispanic audience. They will tell you, like, they're not offended by it. They love the Tiki Room. They understand what it is, and they don't care. But at the same time, the company's, gonna try to fix all these things. I think in Florida's case, the Moana thing's gonna happen. You're gonna see that stupid Moana show at one point, and I think you're gonna see that Toy Story marionette show. I don't think Bears is gonna make it. I don't think it's gonna happen.
So confused. Should I be excited or not? Wait.
You should not be excited.
No.
No. The Country
Paris
Bear
has a Toy
Jamboree.
Story
very
marionette
special.
show. You should go.
Wait, where?
Yeah, Paris.
Okay, I'll go there.
Yeah,
So confused.
But it's
Sad
actual
kids.
marionettes, and it's in a restaurant.
Yes.
Beautiful
What?
restaurant.
The Von Trapp family is doing a marionette show.
Well, you can make that joke anymore. The Von Trapp's offensive at this
I mean, you
point.
should have saw the comments I had to cut out, the psychotic comments. I have to be, I don't know. I don't know what I can say anymore.
Yeah. Well, I had an argument with someone where they were like, what were the word? Be better.
Yeah.
And I wrote, I was like, the thing you have to understand is not everyone who's against these changes is racist, right? Like, obviously, if you're racist, that's bad. You should not be racist. But there are people who approach this purely from a nostalgic standpoint, purely from family memories and nostalgia and their childhood. Childhood memories are a very powerful thing. When you take things away from people's childhood, they get very emotional. And so you're inevitably changing something that means something to someone. So in the case of Splash, there's a lot of people who grew up with that ride, have fond memories with family members that may not even be with us anymore, of like that was their first thrill ride. They remember going with Grandma on Splash Mountain. And for some people, that's going to be Jungle Cruise. And so there is everything in the parks, no matter what it is, we've learned at this point, it could be the dumbest thing. And someone has an emotional connection. That doesn't mean their emotional connection is dumb, because you make memories in all sorts of places, in all sorts of ways. And I understand that. I don't think it's nice to demean a person's nostalgia and memories with family and friends to racism. I don't think that's right. I think that's as wrong as I don't know. I just don't think that's the right thing to do. I think you can be nostalgic and be sad that something has happened and also understand the reasoning as to why it's happening. Like with Splash Mountain, I understand changes need to be made. I don't agree with what the change is. I think the change is the bad idea. I understand that there is a need for change, right? They're two different things. You can be not racist and still be sad that a ride that you grew up with is going away. They're not mutually exclusive things.
Well, it's not that there's no. I don't like the redhead scene right now. Does that mean that I don't like women? No. Au contraire.
It means I like Mark Davis and his staging.
But no, but it's like, especially the Pirates. Pirates has a timestamp on them, and
Yeah.
yes, things were very different in that time.
Yeah.
Pirates right now ride a little rubber boat, have a black T-shirt, and have Uzis in their hands. We're not going to do that. I mean, come on. It has a timestamp, and yes, it's different. It's hard to explain your kids, like, oh, well, we don't do that anymore, but those were the Pirates back in the days.
But that's not a conversation that Disney should be having. That's a conversation that you should be having with your kids.
Well, and
also, Disney produced a series of Pirates of the Caribbean movies, which, while they did have some female empowerment parts, also very much captured how sexist people were at the time. Like, the Pirates very much, like, at several points in the movie, try to have their way with Elizabeth Swann.
Yeah.
That's in your movie that you marketed to families. You can't afterwards be like, no, okay. You didn't change those
It's
movies.
wrong.
Those movies still exist as they were on your Disney Plus service. until I said that. Now they're getting, someone's cutting into them right now. They're removed from children's profiles.
Well, and that's my
have a
other
warning.
I mean, this is not on the Jungle Cruise anymore, but like, why would you take a movie down from Disney Plus? Have one of those, I don't know, who do you want to do it? Like
Leonard
a
Maltin.
pre-show where you start like, hey, when we made this movie, things were different. And those are not okay anymore today, so you have to know that this, again, was made in this time.
So they had
but
that
not just
on a
taken
couple
away.
of those movies. Peter Pan and what else was on that list?
right?
Dumbo, Aristocats, all Swiss Family Robinson, all had that disclaimer. And then what they did was they took another step last week. They removed it. So if it's a child profile on Disney Plus, the child cannot get to those movies without the parent, which is crazy. Like Peter Pan is inaccessible to a child unless a parent is there.
Have you read the book? The book's worse, please.
But what is the Aristocats? Is one of the
Oh,
cats?
the Aristocats.
Yeah, there's some.
There's
we'll talk about it later.
There's
There's
an
some.
Asian cat who
yeah.
says, I believe, fried rice, egg foo young. It's very bad. It's very bad. It's not a great scene. Yeah. I understand that. I don't know if it should be removed from children's profiles. I don't think kids, I mean, maybe it normalizes that for them and it's bad. I don't know. That's not the discussion I want to get into.
Let's just talk about colored people on a pole.
Can't we do the same thing though with attractions? Like we just can block kids from accessing the attractions.
Disneyland is such a big
Just have
part.
it for adults.
How old are you?
No, but Disneyland is such a big part of American pop culture, right?
disclaimer.
That, you're erasing, you have such little, like everything after 1966 no longer has a connection to Walt Disney, right? And so you have a very limited library of things that Walt Disney worked on. And if every couple of years you're like, oh, we can get rid of one more thing. Oh, you get rid of one more thing. Oh, you get rid of one more thing. At some point you run out of things that were done by Walt Disney. At some point there has to be a museum aspect to that, right? Like as the founder of your company, the man who founded the greatest entertainment company in history. Some of that legacy has to be preserved. Like I understand Disneyland is not a museum, but at some point, like some of those things need to be preserved so future generations can see, like, this is what Disneyland was like in the 50s. This is what Disneyland was like in the 60s. This is what American pop culture was like at those times. This had an important cultural impact. Or at the very least,
And anyway, we're changing the Snow White ride nobody complained about.
Yeah, I don't agree with those changes either. But
Yeah.
that's the problem, is it just change for the sake of change in the case of Snow White. As opposed to Jungle Cruise, where, again, the Imagineers came in instead of, I know Kim thinks she's doing great work, but Kim has just wrecked Disneyland for the last however many years, Kim Irvine. The castle looks like garbage. The Snow White ride is a bad idea. She's just got to be stopped. She doesn't know what she's doing anymore. I was going to say it. She doesn't. She has no idea what she's doing. As opposed to this team of people who, even in just the interview, I'm like, this makes sense. You've said the real approach to this is people said they're offended by this. We've been asked to change this. We look at it as an opportunity to make relevant changes to the ride that also embody the spirit of what the ride is. And that's what we want. That's how you make everybody happy in this situation. You don't just change things to whatever the easiest answer is. You sit down and you come up with a thoughtful, creative solution that not only makes people who come for the first time happy, but makes those of us who've been there 100 times happy. You please everyone, which is what the Disney company has been set out to do since day one, making what appear to be children's movies, animated movies, that actually appeal to everyone in the movie theater, no matter what their age is. And that's what the parks have to be. They can't be for one audience. You can't just be like Princess and the Frog, slap it into a mountain ride in New Orleans. It doesn't make sense.
I think somebody was able to explain that to Bob Chapek. We can fit Louis into the Jungle Cruise, but putting Tiana in the actual jungle, that's racist, Bob. We're not going to do it. We don't. Bob, stop it. We cannot have two Princess and the Frog rides. Stop it, Bob.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Love it.
I can't follow that.